worried that it didn't audibly tell us something, but I see that it says it's going. So hopefully we're good. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm looking forward to this session. And in this session, we are going to bring everything together. We are, for those of you that have not been able to make every session, I'll do an extremely quick review of what we've covered. We talked about filling out your profile. So first is thinking about LinkedIn really as almost a second website. Understanding people are looking at your profile and saying, can her company help me? What would that look like for me to be helped by them? So there is, if you did not join that class and you did not register for it, but you have not done a lesson on improving your profile, then you can send me a message, which I will put this in the chat right now. You can email me at KatherineExtraBoldSales.com, and I have a shortened version that is a private YouTube link that's a 25-minute presentation on 3 things to do to improve your LinkedIn profile. So if you missed class 1 or 2 and you don't know what I'm talking about, but you would like to improve your LinkedIn profile, message me, ask for the 25-minute video, and I will share it with you. After we did some live critiques of what people had done with their profile to improve their about section, then we started to move into this conversation about what is a professional brand. And we talked about the 3 E's. We want to reference that our expertise, which is like, what do I know personally because of all of my work experience? What is my overall experience, which is where you talk about industries and patterns and trends in your career as a whole. And then what my friend Mark Hodgson calls your essence, which is kind of just what's unique about you. What are your values, your priorities? How do those things show up? And if you imagine a Venn diagram with 3 circles where expertise, experience, and essence come together, that's actually your professional brand. If you were to poll friends who are close to you, hey, what is he good at or what is she good at? Tell me about that person. Things that they would say would probably be popping up in those 3 circles. So to catch up people who are just jumping in this time, and by way of review, the end of the class last time, I shared a social posting grid that I created on how I think about how to talk about my product, services, and my expertise. Christian, since you and I had a lot of back and forth about it, I was actually going to call on you, if I may, because I was going to take a couple volunteers and say, anybody who practiced using the grid and then use that to inform their posts, would you talk to us about that experience? Because these resources are still available to you, even if you're a little bit behind on implementing them. So Christian, would you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely, sure, yeah, big thumbs up, and I ended up sharing that with a few other people because it was unmind numbing, the negative of it, because what I do for the most part is mind numbing to a lot of people. It makes a lot of sense to me, but it's so esoteric, and I decided to go through the particular questions that get you thinking very, very specifically about why I love it, as an example. I think that's the first thing. What would make people feel secure about it, I think was another question, and a few others. So it gets you really thinking specifically about, all right, either the essence of me or the product itself. And what was most powerful was I got a new idea, a new reality of what I actually do that I can provide to a customer. So I went through those questions about being able to support a company who has a failed CRM launch. And I had to actually have the honor of, and very grateful for a little bit of back and forth with Catherine. So the aha moments were quite powerful. So this is an excellent tool that I'm very pleased I have the opportunity to use. And I think the other thing is just the level and depth of ongoing communication that I or anyone who uses this can do, because I would always get stuck on my tracks going, yeah, but I have sort of an idea, one idea about my particular product, but well, what else do I say about it? I already said that one thing, and so this gives you like multiple angles to take on the one thing, that you can say from different angles, which I would imagine different people are going to resonate with in different ways.
Christian, like an example of that to me is, let's say it is a failed CRM implementation that you can help people with. If CRM reboot, I'm just making this up, right? If that's the name of the product or service. And then this first question we're looking at is, if we answer the question, well, how does my service around a CRM reboot help other people be more successful? There's lots of answers to that, right?
Exactly.
So that can actually be a theme for a week. That could become a blog series. That could become, that could be a post, and you just decide, I'm going to talk about this topic every Monday, but I'm going to do other things other days. Like, you're totally free to do what you want with it. But that was part of what I experienced as I was working through it again myself some this week, is that sometimes I had a lot of answers. This is part of what I love to train about selling, is that selling is a vehicle to, it's a means to a greater end, not only for the buyer, but also for the seller, because it ties to a bigger purpose. Like, this thing we're selling should fulfill people's goals and desires in other ways. So particularly about halfway down where it says, why does this thing matters in the world? I love that, right? Because it shouldn't be hard for people to be able to use a tool. I'm answering Christian's question, right? What do you do if you've had a failed CRM implementation? Why does this thing matter? Because it's not right that you spent all this money and no one's using it. It's not right that it's so difficult to use it. It is frustrating your employees that they're supposed to be using it, but they don't enjoy it because it's still too clunky, right? I'm literally just ripping off the top of my head, but there could be 15 answers just to that grid of looking at product, going down the line, and where that intersects with the question, why does this thing matter in the world? It can be multiple answers. Cool. Now, Fred, I felt like when I saw one of your posts, I felt like it was sort of reminding me of elements of this. Did you use this to derive your posts for the week, or did that just come out of your brain from practice?
No, it came from both. I was kind of listening to what you said, and I figured that I'd try it out. I just give them a little tease of what they should be thinking about within business, and then I think I should just keep on doing that.
Fred, can you, while somebody else volunteers, can you find that post so you could read it to us? Because I didn't grab a screenshot. I want them to hear what when I complimented you and wrote and said, hey, that looks good. I'd like them to hear an example of what I was saying I thought looked really good. You want me to take another volunteer and then come back? You want to find it?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody else unmute. Does anyone else want to ask me a question about this, or have anything to share about their experience of starting to practice with this last week?
I have a question.
Okay.
It's Jill.
Hi, Jill.
So I missed last week because I was out on biz. So apologies for that. But in looking at this template, is the it your business? When you're asking, like, how does it help other people?
Good question. The it is whatever you filled in the blue box at the top. So I gave people a fillable PDF, and if you don't have access to this, any of you, just again, email me and I'll send this to you. But what you do, Jill, is under product or service, you fill in the proper name of something you want to talk about from your company. Mm-hmm. And then, so give me an example of one of those. What's an example?
So for me, let's say R&D tax credits. Woo!
Yes, exactly. So R&D tax credits. And so that becomes the pronoun it is, as you get on the column, you answer that same set of questions for each product or service. And then the difference between product and service and expertise is the expertise is, what is Jill awesome at professionally that still falls in your range of your whole expertise? It might be brainstorming about R&D tax credits, right? But it's going to be the expertise that I want the part you all to get is like, I'm uniquely good at that thing professionally, right? You can talk on Facebook about being a good cook or whatever, but professionally. So for me, like expertise, like this sounds crazy, but one of the things that is a superpower is that I am really good at helping people realize when they're making up a story, an unhelpful story in sales. Every single day, I end up having a coaching conversation with someone where I say, well, what do you mean they're ghosting you? Well, how do you know that that's why they're not getting back to you? Well, what are all the other reasons they may not be getting back to you? Okay, so what are you going to do about that? Right? Like it just keeps coming up. And so helping people reframe and move forward and persevere in sales, I'm really good at that. That's one of my areas of expertise. So I might fill in the blue box, I might say, helping people not make up a story. Because this is just for me, right? This is my tool. So then I answer all the questions about how, when I do that, how does that help people? And then these can literally become a launching pad for LinkedIn posts. Thanks for that, Jill.
Oh, thank you.
Brad, you ready?
Yes, I found it.
Okay, can you just read it to the group?
Yes, I said, information technology is one of the most important tools you have in your business. Trusting your MSP / outsource provider and knowing that they have you covered is so important.
Yeah. So that reminded me, Fred, a little bit of why does this thing matter? It reminded me a little bit about what happens if I don't get or learn this. Like, you know, this is very important, i.e. it's costly if you don't have this kind of relationship with your provider. That felt like a very comfort giving statement. So I felt like it kind of addressed some of the first three questions. When I saw it, I thought, that's good. That's really moving in a you should be able to expect kind of way. And it felt warm to me.
Well, you probably hit me subliminally somehow, and then I just projected it onto LinkedIn.
Exactly.
He has that way.
Exactly. So let me pause just so I can see everybody get. Anybody else want to ask something or make a comment before we go on? Because we're going to build on this. We're good? Okay. Anthony, I show that you're unmuted. You're not being noisy, so you're okay. But you want to speak, or are you good?
Good.
Okay. Okay, then I'm going to keep going. So here's what we're going to do next. Now we're going to start talking about what I call a sales sequence. Now, in a room this size, we have people who are the owners who sell. We have people who are the business development employees or account managers or SMEs or all the different things that people get called in a sales role. And then we have people who are in other roles who are just here, and we're glad for that too. So there's all kinds of language in sales and marketing that different people use differently. So I want to define this and tell you, to me, what some synonyms could be in case that helps you to put it in a different bucket for your thinking. When I'm talking about a sales sequence, I'm talking about what are the steps that you will predetermine being a key point here. What are the steps you're going to predetermine that you're going to take to reach out to someone that you want to sell to for any reason? So I mean the term very broadly. Another person might call it a campaign. Another person might actually call it a sales process. Sales process can also mean other things, but I call it a sales sequence because I literally mean the series of steps that I take when I want to get in front of someone. And it doesn't matter if it's a prospect that I've never worked with. It doesn't matter if it's a referral of someone I've been given to, but somehow we still are having trouble connecting. And it doesn't matter, I would still call it a sales sequence if you're an existing client, but I'm trying to reach you to make sure you know that you've been invited to something, or to share something with you that I really want to make sure that you see, and I'm not sure that we connected on this point. So think about, for prospects and clients, and think about it just as a very broad set of steps that you get to customize and personalize for your purposes, as an example of what I'm going to model for you. All right. So there's three things that I ask myself when I'm getting ready to set up a sales sequence. So as the business owner who sells, I have to deliver everything I sell. Now, I am in the process of training another person to come and train under me. And I have plans to grow and scale. And I'm also producing videos, so you don't have to be in a live class to have help with me. But for now, most of it rises and falls on me and my good health. I've got to sell and I have to deliver. And so my own sales ambitions of what I do every day for my revenue generating activities, which is what I call it when I reach out to people, they're pretty modest. I do a handful of things every day, but for me, it's like a marathon. Like I'm not contacting 30 people a day like I used to, or 60 people a day, or 100 people a day when I was a full-time business development person, but I do steady activities all the time. And one of the things that keeps me on track is that I have a plan of let's just say Anthony, for example. Anthony and I are going to talk about something, and if we don't connect or he doesn't accept my invite to get together and visit, then 2-3 days later, I'm going to reach out again, probably try a different mode of communication, right? If he didn't respond to email, I might call him, leave a message. Now we have each other's phone number. I might text, or I might send an email. And it's those steps of the quote chasing. I use air quotes because this is for people and not to them or at them. Okay. But the process of following up and following a plan of pursuit is what I'm calling the sequence. All right. So there's all kinds of ways we do this. One of the areas that we have to think about is what are the modes of communication. The reason I'm teaching this at the end of the LinkedIn class is because LinkedIn is a significant mode of communication if you are B2B. A lot of your buyers are probably out here. So using LinkedIn and the email feature as an alternative to email is a very significant, viable alternative for you. But the reason we're not talking about it till now is because if your profile's stinky, your picture's bad, and no one can tell what you sell, then it's not useful, because when they go read about you, they can't put 2 and 2 together and understand. So we had to build the base to be a good poster and to add added value content out there. And then we can use the in-mail feature in our sequence. All right. So with modes of communication, we might email to them. We might do a LinkedIn in-mail when we want to reach people. We might call and they'll actually answer. We might call and they don't answer, but we leave a voice message like we said we were going to. And with that, we have an invitation or a statement about what we'll do next. You might communicate on other social media, depending on what you sell. You might have written notes. I still love handwritten notes. There could be others. What are other ways of reaching out to people? Just go ahead and unmute yourself and tell me, what are other ways of reaching out to people that have worked for you all in your sales pursuit? Just unmute and chime in.
You did mention texting. Sometimes that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll add that here. Texting is another mode. Great. What else?
I think leveraging your connections. So if
Yeah.
you know somebody on LinkedIn, reach out to them, get an introduction. So it's not a cold.
Great point. Anything else?
How about just being out there and at a networking function?
Yeah, how about you?
That's
Great
what I
point,
was
Jill.
gonna
Like
say.
in-person networking. Perfect. Yeah,
That's what I agree completely. I get a lot of traction out of that.
right. That should be on the list. That's an excellent point.
What about, and we do this in email or a post, but inviting them to webinars or other events?
Yeah. So Anthony, I'm going to cover that in a second under reason, but I'm completely tracking with you that to me, inviting to something that is perceived added value is it's just such an important and helpful way to be selling that's not always just asking for a discovery meeting. I think especially when people are selling through LinkedIn and that the platform is pretty inundated, because depending on the industry you're in or the part of the world you're in, that could still be in more of lockdown. I mean, if you live in Australia, like you just acting like, it's it's like it was 9 months ago, right? I mean, people are not going out and doing events like what Jill has been able to enjoy, you know. So so having something to say besides, do you want to get to know each other and spend 15 minutes on the phone, is really valuable as a reason to reach out. Anything else? I think we've got, there might be other social things. There could be other, you know, other ways, but we've covered most of them. So I call those the modes. All right. I call the modes of communication. So let me show you this. When I'm getting ready, so let's say, here's a great example, as a real life example. So you all are about to experience this. I just thought of this off the top of my head. Before I launched my book, I used to have an every other month book group, and we would read another sales book. And I did it simply for community building, to stay top of mind, and to stay in front of prospects and clients in a way to add value and have community with them, but to not always be selling something. I like to sell. I'm not afraid of it, but I liked discussing other people's books because that was interesting. And then I got really busy doing mine, and then I was exhausted, and then I canceled. I was going to do Chris Voss's book, and then I didn't read it in time, and I felt overwhelmed, and I just kind of set that to the side for a while. Well, I haven't done a book club book about my book. So my team and I were brainstorming, hey, what if we did something around Thanksgiving and made it like a thankful theme? And we just invite whoever wants to come and talk about it, and we'll just resume the book group. So this time we'll do mine, and then we'll get back in the mode of doing another one. Okay. I have to come up with the sequence of how I'm going to invite people to this. If I just randomly do this, I won't have a big crowd because I won't have leveraged my email marketing. I won't follow up with people that I really in particular want to have see there. So I have to think through, like, what's my intention? What do I want to have come out of this? So I am thinking about the timing, both how soon is this thing happening, as well as how often do I want to do the outreach, which is tied to the urgency of the issue. I'm thinking through number two, Anthony, this was to your point. What's the reason for my outreach? Is it a webinar? Is it that I want to get in front of them and have a discovery sales call? Is it that that I want to see, I just helped and did some coaching for someone who was going to the Conscious Capitalism conference that is this week in Austin. He does a lot of business among large brands that are B Corps and are at this Conscious Capitalism conference. And so he was setting up sales appointments ahead of time to meet with people at the show. Super clever, right? That was really smart planning. So his reason was, hey, I'm going. Are you going? I saw you attended in past years. Do you want to meet while we're there? That was his reason. Got it? And then third is the mode. By what method? We just talked about what the modes might be. You have to make this decision. The other final decision is, who the heck are you calling on? So again, in a room this size, you've got everything from people who are used to working in a very sophisticated CRM, and you have inbound leads, and you have people coming to your site, or you get tons of referrals, all the way to people who are like, I wish I had more referrals. I'm coming up with my own list of people I want to pursue, and I've got to decide what is my justification for reaching out to them, and what is the quote reason. On this call, we have everywhere in between. So I want to say that if you are in a more sophisticated or larger company, and those can be independent variables, right? But if you are in a more sophisticated and larger company that has a very robust email marketing system, whoever's designing this still needs to think of these issues. It's just that a bunch of it's automated, because when you send the email out, you should be coordinating with your sales team so that people follow up and look at who opens, who doesn't, who's responded to this, and is gathering data on what seems to be resonating with people. If you don't have that kind of system, that is okay. I still do this fairly manually. Now I have an email marketing system and I have a CRM, but when I'm thinking about my book club, I'm literally going to sit with a cup of coffee and think, who do I know that I think could use me for a speaking engagement, for training with their team or something? I have reason to believe they have the book in their hand, and I want to invite them to the group. I'm going to still brainstorm. around that. So you can be anywhere you want on the spectrum of automation. And I still think these are the key questions that a person has to ask. Okay, so let me pause. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to pause. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to see what questions you have about terms I've used, about my presuppositions about these considerations. What do you want to ask me before I show you more about how I put all those things in combination? I want to make sure you're tracking with me. And no questions silly.
Can
Becky.
you just repeat it one more time? Not necessarily to the same level of like a reason and the mode, but I'm sort of
Timing, reason, and mode, you're asking if I would just expand
yeah.
on that?
Just repeat, please.
Yeah. So timing is both like, is there, we have to pull the trigger by a certain date because there's actually an event with a date, right? So it could be a conference or webinar to the earlier example. Or you're also thinking about, is this just, I'd like to sell to you sometime. And so how often do I want to be reaching out to you in some kind of sequence? Those both fall under timing. Reason is, what is my justification for reaching out to you? And by the way, you can have multiple reasons in a sequence. It doesn't have to be only one, but it might be that I've been trying to get a sales call with you anyway, but now we have this webinar coming up. So now I'm going to pivot and start talking about the webinar. And if you don't respond to that, then I'm going to come up with another reason. Totally valid. I've done that zillions of times, but you got to have a reason. And do you want to grab a cup of coffee and see if we can help each other? I don't like that as a reason. I mean, unless we're kind of already friends and I really believe that you're for me, otherwise that feels like a veiled pitch. And I'd rather you just be upfront about that. So I really like to have a pretty specific reason. And I can model that for you as well. And then the mode, of course, is what's the rotation of, and this is a really big part, Becky. I appreciate you asking that again, because the thing about the mode is that the most important consideration is how will they receive it? Okay, if you're older and you're not used to texting with people for business that are not like really good friends and close clients, but you find out that your prospect is a big texter, then you need to do it anyway. Doesn't matter that you're not as comfortable with it, because this is about serving them. And so that's why I think if the people you want to sell to are on LinkedIn, it behooves you to get better at it because it's a preferred method of communication. I have a guy I met on Clubhouse that I think is going to become a client. We're doing a lot of back and forth. That man is like white on rice on getting back to me inside LinkedIn InMail. He must have it open all day. Every time I've messaged him, he's written me back within 15 minutes. And I haven't even tried to experiment that against his email address because this other way is working so well. So that tells me, for this guy, Rick, that works. So everyone's got their preferences, and the preference of our prospect, as much as we can figure that out, is the priority, not our own preference.
Well, and I know from several different marketing conversations that for especially the millennials and the Gen Ys, that's how they do most of their communication anymore, is via text. And if they're not getting a text, they're not responding.
Yeah, I still feel like a little bit hesitant about like what I would consider excessively texting. But even as I say that, I know that's because I was raised at a time that texting was used more personally. So I'm a little bit less comfortable with it, but I completely agree with you, Kim. I feel like people who like that respond to that, and it's not considered unprofessional to them. It's a valid tool for communication.
Yeah, I was on the phone this morning with somebody and he said, I'll call, I'll email them, and then I'll send them a text with a picture of my card on it. That's saying, and I'm like, okay, I haven't heard that one, but I'm like, all right, and he basically just says, I know you may not be interested now, but please hold on to my card if I can do anything for you in the future. So I'm like, all right, most of these things probably have, press the scan button, it's in their database.
Interesting. Yeah.
So,
You know, Brad, when you said that, it reminded me that what I should have had, I'll go back and fix this on the slide, but what I should have had too is almost like a bracket and say everywhere you can incorporate video, you know, is good in
Right.
this too. So having video embedded in an email, or those of you that have worked with me closely, you know how berserk I am about the voice memo part of LinkedIn. So I'll show you. If you don't know, let me just show you really quick, because this is how you're going to get all your money's worth out of the class right here. If you go, it doesn't work on the computer version. You have to be on the app. But if you open the app and you click like you're going to do a message, so I'm going to do this too.
You love that messaging.
I do.
It's easy though, if you think about it, and it's personal.
Okay, so I do it to, so I'm Christian, I'm about to message Christian. So let me show you this. It's just as if I'm typing, but there is this button that's a microphone. Christian, we're testing this for everyone's benefit. Isn't this cool? Don't talk more than 59 seconds or you have to leave a second message. It doesn't automatically send. You think, was that clear? Do I like it? Yes, send. Goes in the cloud, goes to satellite. Elon Musk, thank you very much. Goes up and down. All of a sudden, even on your laptop, by now it's synced and it's in your history along with typing. And so you can voice memo as an alternative to typing. You guys, I get a lot of response from this. Like even someone I just am getting to know, I'll say, thank you so much for connecting with me. I saw we both know so-and-so, that's so cool. There's this respond to the voice. We're testing this for everyone's benefit. Isn't this cool? Don't talk more than 59 seconds or you have to leave a second message. Exactly. So voice memo and video is also an option for mode of communication. Sorry, Christian, go ahead.
That's fine. So in modes of communication, is it an assumption that you're referring to in-mail as people that you are connected to in first order and not people that you're not connected to?
Great question. So to reframe that in case anyone, let me say that just a different way.
Yeah.
So in the sequence itself, Christian's saying, what like, am I assuming that I have already connected, or is that a step? So you actually, depending on the permissions that someone has set up, you can message someone who is not a connection, which is interesting. I think depending on your level of LinkedIn-ness and whether you pay or not is the level of how many of those you can do. I have done that. I have said, I've tried a couple times to reach you by email and I'm wondering if this is a better way. I also will do double duty. I will invite someone to connect with me, and where it says add a note, yeah, I will mention the invite or whatever it is. So you can do both. And you also, Christian, thank you for your question. You also could make one of your steps of your sequence just to send out the invite to connect. That could be one of your quote reasons for reaching out as a valid step, and then see if they accept or don't.
A little lost now. So you said on the LinkedIn app. So like I pulled you up on LinkedIn.
Uh-huh.
So,
now act like you're going to message me, like you're going to type a message on InMail.
Hit the microphone.
Uh-huh.
Right. So when you do that, does it then populate LinkedIn with audio, or does it populate it with written?
It is when you hit the microphone, which you actually have to hold it down. So you can't just touch it and then touch it again. You actually have to hold it like a walkie-talkie. So you hold it down, you talk, and it captures your voice only. It does not do voice to text.
Oh, okay. So if I wanted to test after this call, one on you, but can other people open, like if other people have access to it, or that's just between you and I on LinkedIn?
Just as if you and I typed an InMail. It's a voice conversation only between the two of us.
Okay. And you're sending that to people that have done what to you?
I use it for everything.
On LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn. So I use it to say, hi, thanks for connecting with me. I use it with prospects to say, like, I have a lady, I swear to you, she does not read her email. I mean, but she keeps taking my calls and we keep meeting and I'm nurturing a very big sales opportunity with her. So I started talking to her via LinkedIn. I started saying, her name is Angela. I started saying, Angela, it's Catherine. I sent you an email about 3 days ago with my next steps. I'm going to go ahead and schedule myself on your calendar because I have your Calendly. And so I'm going to schedule myself for our next call. If this doesn't work, decline my message. Otherwise, I'll see you next week, when I pick a time. Great. Thanks. Bye. Like, I just talked to her that way, and it keeps moving forward. Even though she does not write me back on email, she listens to those messages and she replies.
Do you get notification that they were listened to? Oh, okay.
I don't know how to do that. So like usually usually someone will give a thumbs up or okay or something, right? In her case, literally, talk about a story of ghosting. I mean, I have to work really hard on my own mindset here to not make it mean anything, because there's just long periods of no communication on her side. I think she's that busy. And so when we show up and we have the call, they go great, and we set a next step, and she does the next step and I do the next step, and then there'll be long periods and she just doesn't write back very much. I mean, I don't know why, but every time I think this thing is dead, like I sent her a breakup email. I have what I call the breakup email. I sent her a breakup email recently, and I said, last time we talked, the ball was in your court. It's been a long time, and I'm wondering if you decided to go a different direction. Boom.
And you did that verbally?
I did that. I did that on email, actually, to see if she would respond on email. And she wrote back on email to the breakup email and said, nope, there's some things going on my side. I know the ball's in my court. This is not dead yet.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go until no.
That's right.
Even after that, you might want to check in once in a while.
I love
Yeah.
the term breakup email.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, and there's actually, let me tell you guys this tip. There's something called themagicemail.com. Check this out later. They literally give you a script that is very neutral in tone, so that you can say, seems like maybe you've gone a different direction. Like, it's not accusatory, but you don't send it after only 1 or 2 times. Okay. That would be passive aggressive and weird. Like, you only would send it after lots of conversations, seeming promises, etc. And then you cannot get them to get back to you. Like, I would say you have to try 5 times. You don't get to try twice. You have to try a lot. But if you try a lot and they just keep not getting back to you, then you could say something like, seems like you're going a different direction. Use the formula from the magic email. It gets a response so quickly. And sometimes the response is, I'm so sorry, I didn't tell you. We actually did go with someone else. And you're like, thank you. I just need to know. And a lot of times it's, oh my gosh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't know 6 weeks passed. I didn't mean for that to happen. Super common. So it's a great tool. Okay. Any other questions about mode, sequence, etc.? Because I'm going to keep building on this. I want to make sure our definitions are the same. Okay, let's keep going. This is how I use this. Okay, so we've got the 3 reasons. We've got the 3 things to consider when setting the sequence that Becky asked about. Thank you for that clarification, Becky. And now we're going to talk about, let me show you how to read this spaghetti. Okay, remember what I said a minute ago. Timing, reason, and mode. Timing, reason, and mode. Now we're going to look at what this possible could look like. I want to have an introductory sales call. Upper left, under reasons we reach out. I can ask for that first by LinkedIn. Then I can call and I might reach them. I might not. Then I can send an email. Then a few days later, I can call and I go ahead and leave a voicemail. And the voicemail, I tell them I'm going to email them when I hang up, right? I can have a single reason and lots of modes. I can similarly have a favorite mode and more than one reason. And the reason it looks like a big spaghetti mess in the middle is because there are an infinite number of combinations of how you decide the reason for your outreach and the way you're going to reach out to them. This is up to you. This is up to what you can discern is your prospect's favorite way of being communicated with. This is up to you about if they're a client, what you know about their history and how they tend to respond. And this is also to prompt your thinking of, am I always asking for a sales call when actually there is something we could go to together, or my company's doing a cool event, or I thought of someone that might add value in their life and I just want to be a nice person and reach out and introduce them to someone else that I think they'd be glad to know? Or am I sharing an article or a podcast or something of benefit where I can say, hey, I thought of you. I thought of you. Now, even when I do all these things, I always want to sell something ultimately. Okay. My business is to sell things, but I have a long view about the value that I can bring to someone over time and when that right time is for them to buy. I'm very flexible about that because I have a long view. Greg Signorella, I see you raised your hand.
Oh, hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Yes, I know you had brought this up in one of your earlier calls, but I just wanted to recap it here for a moment. In order to have this type of outreach to all these contacts on LinkedIn, you have to subscribe to or participate in LinkedIn's. Is it just a premium package that gives you that type of access, or is there a higher level in order to do this type of outreach?
You can do an in-mail even when it's free, I think. I just think you have a very low cap of the number of months.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very, very small. But I thought there was even a limit on premium service. But so in your case, when you have this type of outreach capability, are you just at the premium service or are you at their highest category?
Oh, no, I think depending, well, that's a great question, Greg, because it depends upon whether you're a business development person that's doing dozens of things a day, or you do 3 or 4 outreaches a day. Like if you don't have to do that many in your business because you're also responsible for existing customer service, which is lots of us on here, right? I mean, lots of us wear both hats. Then you might be perfectly fine at free or even premium without running out of options on the in-mail. And also, when you're going to use LinkedIn, I mean, you're going to look and see if they have very many followers, and you're going to look at their activity history and do your best guess about whether this is a way to reach them anyway. You're only going to do it if they look like they're really active. So I'll give you an example of that. So some of you know my friend, he's not here today, but he's come to V5O before. He's actually a member, but my friend Lawrence Hackney is a financial reporting guru. He works in all different kinds of accounting systems, and he helps you figure out how much money you're really making and helps you close your books faster. Lawrence doesn't post on LinkedIn that much. He's a lurker. Okay. He reads other people's stuff, but he doesn't post very much. He also does not check his in-mail very much. And if he were here, I would smile and say, I wish you would check your in-mail. Well, I know this about him, so I don't leave him voice memos, right? Because his activity history is very minimal. So I'm not going to assume that that's going to be a better way to reach him. I'm going to try email and phone, just like it's 2005, right? I'm going to try that first. I'm only going to use LinkedIn if there seems to be evidence that they're very active on this. But I mean, if I want to reach Christian, like my observation so far, Christian, is I can use email or in-mail pretty interchangeably, and I can get you both ways. Is that true?
It is, yes.
Okay, and me too.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's just a tool I use a lot. Does that answer your question, Greg?
Yep, it certainly did. Thank you.
Okay. So this is a spaghetti mess. So let me show you how you sort out the mess. Okay, here's the next thing I'm going to show you. These are also examples of sequences. Now I'm showing you the spaghetti mess combination in a flowchart, okay, in a graphic. So let's say that you're going to initiate with a prospect and that you do that first by email. Well, what are the 2 other considerations you have to ask? You're saying, self, I want to reach this company to do business with this company, or at least to have a conversation because they seem like an ideal person. And let's say you're really prospecting from scratch because you don't have an intro from anybody. To Brad's earlier great point, like if you can get an intro, do it that way. That's always better. You've tried everything you can think of. You can't figure out anyone who knows them. And you're like, you know what? That's the right persona. That's the right title. I'm going to write a compelling customer-focused value proposition email. And I'm going to say, here's how I've helped people like you. Would you like to have a conversation? You might email first. In your email, you might say, if we don't connect by Thursday, I'll try to call your office. You call the office, you choose to leave a voicemail, you reintroduce yourself, you assume they didn't get the email, you tell them what you're trying to do. I'm trying to see if you want to have a 15-minute call, and here's why. We've helped companies like you, blah, 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 blah. You let a few days pass. We can talk about timing in a second. And you might try now to do a LinkedIn message. If you are already connected for some reason, there's a lot of people who accept connections and they don't know who they're connected to. So believe it or not, they could be connected to you, even though you don't feel you know them well. So let's say that, let's say you are connected, then you can just go straight to InMail. Let's say you're not connected. Your next step might actually be to invite them to connect. And you'd say, we work with companies like you. Would you like to connect? That's all you have to say on the add a note. X amount of time passes. Again, we'll talk about that in a minute. You might call again, then you might try a note. There's not a magic set. What I want you to see is that I'm randomly using circles and squares to illustrate that we're alternating the mode of communication, and you have to have a good reason. When you initiate with the prospect, this very top model could be to invite them to a webinar. This very top model could be to straight out ask for a sales call. This very top model could be, let's see if we're going to be at the same conference. Would you like to have coffee together? There's lots of reasons, okay? Now, let's say the prospect initiates with you. They actually go to your website, download something, or set up a call. Hallelujah. We love when this happens. That automatically generates an email, potentially, if you've set that up. And in the email, that tells you, that's gone out and happened. And you tell yourself, when this happens, the next day I always call. I know they probably won't reach them because they're so busy, but I'm going to go ahead and leave a message and say, I saw you downloaded our 10 reasons that entrepreneurs should blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to call and introduce myself and see how else I could help you. You leave a message. A few days later pass. You send an email. A few days later pass, you go check and notice if you're connected on LinkedIn. You guys, I don't care if the order is reversed. I'm not saying this is the order you have to do, but what I'm saying is you need to think about your order. Because if you don't plan your sales sequence steps and decide approximately X number of days, I am going to do these things. If you don't do it, you will be random. You will have a low number of revenue generating activities. And when you feel nervous, which all humans do, you probably won't do the work. So by thinking about the flow and the reason and the timing and having a very, very basic plan, and I'm going to model a very basic plan for you on a sheet in a second. But by thinking through these steps ahead of time, you so greatly increase the chances you'll actually do the work. Questions about these images so far?
Catherine, do you get your lead generation PDF from LinkedIn, like, filtering businesses?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so 2 answers to that. I meant that term generically. Sorry, I was using generic language that wasn't helpful. I was thinking of that like an article or a tip suggestion or something. So we either did a blast and I sent it out and they opened it, or literally on my website, if you go to my tab that says free stuff, you can see a model of this, and it's where there are these articles you can download that are valuable sales tips. And when you download them, it says, you're giving me your email in exchange for this, right? Right. Right. So there's a marketing tactic. And so people, you want to have there be something that's of high enough value that they say, is this worth me giving my email for? Yeah, I can always unsubscribe if I don't find this useful. Sure. So there was some activity that they took advantage of in that example. That's what I meant. Now, I'll also answer your question a second way, which is to say, the other big component of this is who the heck am I reaching out to? You can do everything from, in Greg Bezosi's role, I mean, he is a business development full-time person, so he needs more names to work through than I need, because I'm worried about delivering the services also, right? And it's not my only job to sell. If it's your only job to sell, you're going to do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times the volume of the owner seller because it's your job to be initiating with people. So you might run those lists in Sales Navigator, you might use a broker, there might be industry lists, there could be old conference lists. That's something I'd be happy to talk to you about, to brainstorm offline. But even if you're me and you're like, you know what, I can juggle, like in my pipeline at any moment, I don't have more than about 10 opportunities. I don't mean individuals who come to classes, but I mean like corporate sales training or big series. I only got about 10 at a time because it's not a very big company. And so it's easy for me to keep up with the sequence of who do I need to call next, because I set it up in my CRM and I'm following the sequences with a finite list that's relatively small because I'm not calling on 100 people at a time. But I used to. I mean, I was a business development rep for years and I had a much longer list. I still wouldn't do it without a sales sequence because otherwise you show up every day and you're like, what am I going to do today? I mean, you got to have a plan to follow. So this is a way to put a plan together. Brad, you probably did this in your recruiting days even, didn't you? I mean, you had to have a list to work on.
Yeah, well, going way back, we had a book we opened up and hand wrote the list, but yeah, we definitely did that. And we do a lot of sequencing now, whether it's, so if we're identifying clients, we'll do a lot of what you're doing as far as putting out a call. So we look for companies that are looking for an HR person, a payroll back office administration person. So I'll actually go on LinkedIn and look for companies that are looking and then reach out and, hey, have you ever thought about a different solution?
Yes.
You know, are you interested in, you know, getting some a different perspective on it? And we'll do email. I'll connect with them on LinkedIn as part of the sequence. And I definitely do not just hit connect. I tell them why I'm connecting.
Add a note.
The post, would you be interested? So a little short note, but all those things. So we're doing calls, emails, and LinkedIn.
Cool.
And the sequencing part. So, but having the tasks laid out, because I am the one that will not do it unless it's in front of me, and I still get yelled at because I'm like, oh, I didn't do my 50 tasks today. But when you structure it like that, it kind of makes it bulletproof. So even if you have a long Thursday night in New York City, you can get up Friday morning and do it.
Good for you. Good for you. So let me show you a tool I made. We made this for you all as a tool. If you don't have a good CRM structure or you just look for another way, here is how I think of mapping a plan. Okay, this is how I do it. So I'm going to make this bigger. Okay, this is a Word. This is an Excel table that I'm going to share with you because all of the cells are dropped down. So walk with me really carefully because it looks a little bit overwhelming, but I promise it's the simplest way I can think to do it so far. And my excellent business process people study this and help me make it better. Okay, because I'm trying to visually capture what I want to communicate here. Down the left side, I want you to think of what I'm calling cohort A, B, and C. They are a chunk of companies. So Jill, I'll use you as an example. I know you have to call on many more than 3 at a time, but I just did 3 to make it very simple. So let's say cohort A, these are companies that Jill, these are plastics people. These are people Jill believes are good candidates that will use the tax credits because she has a concentration in plastics. In fact, you might have plastic companies in cohort A and B, and cohort C is everybody else, right? It's up to you. And I literally, for simplicity, put 3 company names. If you're Greg Pizzozzi, you better have 30 eventually, right? A day, because it's your job. That's your full-time job. But when you are, when you're me, you're like, I'm just trying to keep up with 3 a day and teach 3 times that day. I mean, it's like, I don't do many more than this because it keeps my pipeline full based on what I can deliver at the moment. So I'm also making a modest number for illustration purposes. So cohort A is on Monday in blue. I'm going to do the first step of my sales sequence to those companies. Now, unmute yourself and tell me, what are the 3 things I have to think about when I'm going to do a sequence?
The method,
timing, reason.
Exactly. Okay. So it might be that I'm going to begin this whole next round by inviting people to connect with me first. So to Brad's point, we always add a note. Don't forget to add a note because otherwise you look like a machine. So you're gonna add a note and you're gonna invite them to connect. And then in your calendar, if you don't have a CRM, and in your CRM, if you have a CRM, you take those names, you enter those names. Yes, I realize they have not connected with you yet, but those are companies and people that you want to sell to. You put those people in your CRM, and you set yourself a task on Thursday. You're going to go notice if they've accepted your connection, and regardless of whether they did or not, you're going to send them an email. The same companies. So our timing is, I gave you a couple business days, 3 business days to respond. I'm very serious about my reason, and I'm going to try you again a second time later in the week. Brad Hartman raised his hand.
So just as on the LinkedIn in sending the notes, sometimes when I'm on my phone on the app,
yes,
if I hit connect, it doesn't give me the option to do a message. Is there a way to do that?
No, and I hate that too.
Okay.
I have found that as well. And so basically I'm responding to people from the app and doing the voice memo, but I'm not initiating because I don't like that I can't add a note.
Right. Okay. I thought I was
Because it's weird, because if you don't add a note, like you heard Amir say it last time, it's like some people, you don't add a note, they won't accept you because they think you're a machine.
Yep.
You just great. I think you increase your chances. Plus, I just feel like it's part of being a good human who sells. Like, tell me why you think we should connect. What value is this going to offer in my life? I think you should take the time to make it more personal. Okay, so I want you to see that you invited them on Monday to connect, and Thursday you're going to send an email. So what's our reason, Jill? What's your reason for reaching out? Do you just want a sales call? Do you have an event? What do you have going on?
Probably a sales call.
Okay, so you're going to have a value proposition. You're going to lead your sales email with like, this is things, companies like you are missing opportunities to take advantage of this because there's this crazy thing that these tax incentives that people don't know about, and we've helped companies like blah blah blah. And I have a link to a case study, and I have a call to action, and I tell you what I'm going to do if we don't connect. I'm going to try you. I'm going to try you again. And so you set yourself to do something else. Now back on cohort A, I have another email here on week 2. You see that? You see blue? Week 2, now it is, now it is Monday again. So these people are on a Monday, Thursday schedule. You do not have to do it this way. You can alternate it further apart. You can change your reasons for connecting. You can change the way of connecting. But I wanted you to see that you have 3 concurrent groups, because here's what happens. You're going to have a group you start on Monday that has the follow-ups listed. And on Tuesday, you need to start a whole other group. And on Wednesday, you start a whole other group. That's why we have a blue group, a pink group, and a yellow group. But what will happen is if you log your tasks of what you need to do next and you assign yourself those activities, even if you're only doing 2 things a day, what's going to happen is every day you're going to have reminders pop up that say you wanted to reach out to so-and-so. Remember your reason, remember what you're trying to do. And you get in a rhythm where you don't have to sit down and wonder, who am I calling? Because you're just obeying the system that you created for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you get stuff done, is by scheduling it and putting it in a plan. You get to determine the reason, you get to determine the space between things.
Mm-hmm. And actually you can maintain a spreadsheet of like a full list of all the companies and or individuals you want to contact. And you can code them to match this, like this is blue, this is what I'm doing with this person. So instead of having reminders hit your computer all day long, you can go to your Excel spreadsheet, not that one, but the more detailed one of who you've reached out to.
Yes.
And where you are in that process.
Totally. What I do, Jill, because I do use the CRM. And so what I do is when my notifications come from my CRM to my email, I delete them because I'm like, I don't have time for you because I have a dedicated time to do this work. And then I shut down my other tabs. I open my CRM and I literally follow my own instructions by looking at tasks by date.
So I'd like you to send me that sheet because my CRM is so out of control. But I like that Excel spreadsheet. I can look at that and see everyone.
Cool. Yeah. And of course you could add more tabs, right? Like I'm sure you're much better at Excel than I am. So you could have more tabs and actually have the whole prospect list on another sheet, right? Yeah, so we're up to the top of the hour. So let me wrap up and show you a couple things, and then I can stick around with some questions. A few things I want you to get from this is, when I'm saying I'm selling over LinkedIn, what I mean is LinkedIn is a valid and important way as a mode of communication that I use to get calls with people. Sometimes I have a lot of back and forth with them before we actually ever get on a Zoom call. I have had people buy, they just sign up through an event or sign up for a class through LinkedIn. That has worked for me as well. It just depends on how complex the thing is and if we have to go have, a phone call, which sometimes we do. But it is a way to use it in the rotation of the overall sequence. So this is what I'm going to also share with you for later. Shut this down. What I want you to see, I'm going to stop sharing because I'm having trouble making the slide advance. I'm going to send you I'm going to send you the Excel document so that you can see how you can choose the mode and you decide your own reason, and you can fill it in yourself. If you look at this and you think, well, Catherine, this is great, but I don't know what to say, then that is something either through my weekly group coaching or through my boot camp, which I'm going to do another one in November. I would walk you through creating the templates that you'll use over and over again. That is a way I can help you because I'm very good at writing various versions of the value proposition. If you have a quick question, just email me. Just email me or LinkedIn me. But what we have brought ourselves up to this point is getting your LinkedIn up to snuff so it looks super classy, super clear. You have a sense of your professional brand, you know what to post, and when people go out and check you out, they see that you're a boss, right? They see that you know what you're doing. And then you use this tool inside broader selling. So if that's something I can help you with, most of you, because you went to the party in New York, most of you have a copy of my book. The second half of my book is all this information about prospecting, qualifying the call, and closing. So between the book and this class and anything else I can offer to you, let me know how I can help you fill in the gaps, because each person's different about where there's some puzzle pieces missing in their mind. But my follow-up email will have some information about how else you can sign up and follow me, or let me know if you have any questions. So Kim, it's okay with me for us to stop recording and officially adjourn for people who have to go, and I can stick around a little bit longer for people who have any remaining questions. Thanks, Jill.